Hi guys, back. This is part 2 of Viva Night. And week 11's question is, how did the Fin De Siècle culture trends shape European society? Here we go. Okay, so what is the Fin De Siècle? So this is just the French phrase that translates to the end of a century. So in 1818, it was really popularized by French novelists and philosophers. And today, Fin de Siècle is used to describe kind of the conclusion of the 19th century. So this is a phase of time that can be considered to be like the English idiom, the turn of the culture, or century, sorry. So although the Fin de Siècle carried with the complexities of the collapse of traditional morality, it also introduced a period of hope for a new era and promoted emotions and individuality. So it did this through opulence and affluency, power and transcendence, and finding yourself. So opulence and affluency. We dive in here to our first point. So Europe was really stable kind of during this time period. They were at the peak of their colonial dominance. They had monopoly over the industries, and they were really politically stable. So it was this perfect timing to kind of pursue passion and pleasure and really kind of figure out what life is all about. We see this kind of in history in the past with different things. When everything's really stable and normal, people are able to explore and express themselves. So after a really loose moral time for Europe and America, they enter this kind of period of time where it's a strict period of morality, and it's the Victorian Era, or the same thing as Fin de Siècle. So individualization kind of brings these industrialization. I'm tired. Innovations come together, inventors come together, and they kind of try to change human existence through their inventions and their innovations. So this is also colonialization. We kind of looked at this a little bit in the past with the scramble for Africa, and just how that kind of created new products to be traded and new things that they needed to, get back to Europe and America. So it created new supplies and created a new product. Heart of Darkness was a book that we read last year, and it can be really seen and taken as the difference between civilized and uncivilized, and like how that looks. And then also we have urbanization, which in the 1890s, people were living in cities that were 10,000 people or more, which is actually a ton of people. So that really shifted from the rural to the industrial production. So they were just more about like production and less about they were less isolated, and they were just more about like producing things and getting more money and kind of creating this community and sustaining it. So Chef Escoffier kind of comes in, and he's a great example of just a man that's kind of coming up in the society. And he's known as, quote, king of chefs and the chef for kings, end quote. So he has this worldwide reputation as the director of the kitchen at the Savior Hotel in 1890 from 99, and then he also after that worked at the Carlton Hotel as the director. So he's one example. And also Arnold Bennett, he also comes up as a novelist, playwright, critic, and essayist. I don't know how to say that. And he works basically on linking novels to the mainstream realism. And he just really becomes famous. Did he write? Wait. No. Was he? Wait. No. Who was that? Oh, wait. Dracula. Was this Dracula? I don't remember. I don't think it was. Sorry. So Thomas Handy says, quote, "Time changes everything except something within us, which is always surprised by change," end quote. So that is point 2. Point 3, sorry, that's point 1. Point 2 is power and transience. So Europe experiences a period of retrospective reacting to the peak of powers. They kind of go back to the old way of living, kind of. But this also kind of leads to their downhill. So although reacting to this height of power brought immense joy and pride, Europe began to lead to a downfall, which kind of led to this bittersweet moment. So the spread of tech made worldwide empires less significant, which is interesting. And this is nihilism, which is kind of the view that life is meaningless and there's really no point to life. So culture changes a lot during this time period. We have gender relationships change a lot, the perspectives on sexuality, and also immigration. Oh, here we go, Dracula. Bram Stoker's Dracula that he wrote in 1897 really shows and captures this gothic horror and just the changing of culture really well. So we see that through literature, and then we also could see it with the bicycles and feminism, which is interesting. But this new innovation was created, which is the bicycle, which we also can see in Heart of Dark, or Things Fall Apart, which we read this year, kind of about colonization in Africa and stuff like that. But it caught the attention of women in particular, and it just became this symbol for feminism and women's rights. It gave women more control about when they could go places in their own transportation versus relying on men for that. So it just really became this power for women. So Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady, Stanton started on this topic and kind of went on from there. And they said, quote, "Women is riding to suffrage on the bicycle," unquote. So Arnold Bennett says, quote, "Any change, even a change for the better, is always accomplished by drawbacks and discomforts," end quote. So again, this was a really bittersweet moment. We have a lot of great innovations coming about in literature and changing of gender roles and women's rights and immigration and stuff. But again, it was kind of the downfall of Europe as well. So our third and final point is finding yourself. So this was a time period that really, the words, self-awareness and self-revelation and introspection really came about, and it was really like the first kind of scene in psychology, and then it kind of goes into art, and you can kind of see like self-expression and individualism in art. So Sigmund Freud was an Australian neurologist and the founder of psychoanalysis, and he also had theories on the effects of human behavior. So again, this really just spreads the awareness of mental health, whether it be, like something physical or something just purely mental. And it just focused on the psyche and self-awareness questions that benefit a civilized worldview. So Sigmund Freud says, quote, "The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water, end quote. So he just really believed that, you know, you could dig deeper in your mind and really find out, you know, different things. And he was big into dreams, but they weren't. He was big into sex. So he was an interesting man. He really helped further the self-awareness and kind of stuff like that. And so our last example of this is Marcel Proust. I know I'm saying that wrong. And he lived from 1871 to 1922, and he was a French novelist. He was known for being the author of a 7-volume novel, The Search of Lost Time. And this is just a really influential novel that influenced the 20th century literature. He concluded that everyday life was special and full of joy and beauty and was meaningful and did have a purpose. And he believed that even though life may be lost due to weakness in human nature, that life was indestructible and recoverable. So that was it for this week's Viva. Fin De Siècle, interesting time period. And although we kind of see it, that they were carrying complexities of the collapse of traditional morality, it also introduced a period of hope for a new era and promoted emotions and individualism. And again, we can see this through the opulence and affluency, power and transcendency, I can't talk, and also finding yourself. So that is it for week 11. I don't think I'm going to get to week 12's Viva. So you can just mark me 0 for now, because I really got to focus on reading and working on week 9 Viva, because that's the one I got, and I'm actually very happy about that. So thanks for tuning in. Good luck to everybody working on Vivas, and yes, bye.